Hey guys, it's Aisha. Welcome back to my channel. If it's your first time here, thank you so much for stopping by. And if it's your second or third, thank you so much for coming back. And hey, if you haven't already, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You know, your girl is trying to build her channel out. So today's video, I thought I'd talk a little bit about Melbourne life. As I mentioned in my trailer video and also the very first video I think that I did on this channel, I talked about the fact that I live in Melbourne, Australia at the moment. And a lot of people have a lot of questions, I think, about what it's like living here and what the world is like in Australia, especially if you are from another country where you've never been here. You just have all these expectations. I know I certainly did when I first came here, because I was like, I don't know, all I've ever seen of Australia for the most part growing up was like Crocodile Dundee and like, you know, a few television shows here or there that made it to Canada. And it made it seem like everything here was very laid back and that there was just crazy, deadly creatures everywhere. And it was just going to be some kind of crazy, like, wildlife safari adventure.
Oh, he's got a knife.
That's not a knife. That's a knife.
Not quite. There definitely are some very exotic parts of Australia, but it is not everywhere. The main cities are very similar to Western cities. I'd say more so to Canada, in my experience. I think that Australia and Canada have a lot of similarities, but they also have their distinct differences, and I'll probably do a video about the differences between Canada and Australia fairly soon, but this particular video, I want to talk about 5 things that I actually really love about living in Melbourne. I'm also going to talk about 5 things that I don't love as much about living about Melbourne, but that's going to be a separate video. For now, it's going to be all about the love. We're going to feel this love. We're going to bring it in, okay, kids? So let's get started with number 1. First thing I love about living in Melbourne is the weather. So your girl's from Canada, grew up, born, raised, and listen, all the things you've heard about Canada being cold are true. We pretty much have 2 seasons, especially where I grew up, which is Alberta, and that province is like right kind of in the middle, western middle. It's prairie. It's cold, okay? We've got 2 seasons, winter and not winter, okay? So when I came down here, they have 4 seasons here in Australia, but not really, because again, it's not necessarily far enough. I shouldn't say, it's not close enough to the South Pole to get a proper winter, but they do get cool weather down here. But it also has areas that get super, super hot. And that was a real shock to me, FYI. When I first moved here, I thought, like a lot of people do, that like Australia is hot all the time or very, very warm all the time. But living in Melbourne, which if you look at Melbourne on a map, it's in the southernmost tip. So it's actually really close to Antarctica, which a lot of people don't realize. So we actually get cool winters down here. In fact, it's winter right now. That was another thing I had to kind of learn when I came down here, is that these seasons are actually flipped in Australia. So how, you know, it's summer right now in North America and like Northern Europe, etc. It's winter down here. So in Melbourne, because we are so far south, it actually does get a little chilly here in the winter, but it's not like, I mean, I've got scale. You know, I grew up in Canada. They talking about it's freezing down here when they're Melburnians and it's like 12 degrees outside. And this is Celsius, by the way, for my American friends. Whereas like I grew up in Canada, I'm like, cold is minus 30. Okay, cold is minus 50 with wind chill. This is a vacation. Are you kidding me right now? But now that I've been here for a while, I have to say even I'm starting to feel the chill, especially when that South Arctic wind comes blowing up. It does actually get quite cold. But overall, you can still go out any month of the year in Australia and not have to worry about 6 different layers of clothing. You can pretty much wear the same clothes all year round, which is kind of cool. And as I said before, because the weather is so mild, people pretty much do things outdoors all the time. Number 2, the proximity to the ocean. So I've always been a water girl. Even though I grew up in a landlocked country for the most part, I've always loved it. The first time I saw the ocean, I fell in love, and I was like, this is beautiful. I want to live near the ocean one day, and it's finally happened. Melbourne is pretty much completely surrounded by the ocean. You can obviously move further inside of the city and be away from it, but no matter where you live here, pretty much within an hour to 2 hours drive, you can get to the ocean, which cannot do where I grew up in Canada. You're talking about a day's drive or more to get to the closest ocean. So love it here. You can actually live fairly close to the beach here for, I mean, it's still expensive, but it's not nearly as expensive as it would be to live near the water, say in California or in Vancouver in Canada, where it's millions of dollars. Here, you can actually have a place that's literally across the street from the ocean and actually pay, a fairly decent rent amount for it. So if you really want to have an ocean view, it's really accessible. But even if you just want to get access to it, to be able to walk on beaches and enjoy the sound of the ocean and the smells and all that good stuff, it's really, really close by here in Melbourne. And I don't think that you can put a price tag on how awesome that is. Number 3. Nature. Australia's got some of the best nature in general. Like, even though it's an isolated country on its own, it actually has quite a diverse agriculture going on. Like, there's deserts here, there's lush rainforests, there's beaches, there's mountains. Like, you pretty much have the gambit all here. So if you're able to travel around to other parts of Australia, you can definitely experience different climates and different types of nature. But here in, like, Victoria is primarily where I've been, which is where Melbourne is, the state of Victoria. It is so green and lush here because we get lots of rain. It's a rainforest, right? It's not as lush and green as like Queensland, which is further north, but we do have gorgeous, gorgeous rainforests here, and I'm gonna put some clips, I think, of my walks that I've done recently through the rainforest, but I'm gonna definitely be doing more videos of when I go out to places that are just outside the Melbourne city limits that are absolutely gorgeous. There's just so many parks and sanctuaries and just all this gorgeous, abundant nature here, and it's free, which is great, because in Canada, for a lot of our national parks, you actually have to pay to see them, but still, it's worth seeing. But here, a lot of them are free, they're accessible, and as I said, we're talking like a 45-minute to maybe 2-hour drive, depending on how far you want to go, and you can have some beautiful, untouched, just magical looking forests and greenery that you have access to. And I personally find that I'm just so much more peaceful and happy when I get away from the city, away from the buzz, and into nature. And even within the city, they put a lot of parks and natural features within it. So like, you can walk through Melbourne and you'll always see like a gorgeous green park or big luscious trees, and I really appreciate that after living in some cities where it's more concrete than not. Number 4 is the food culture down here. Melbourne is got pretty much every restaurant you can think of can be found here, and it's amazing. If you are a foodie, if you like trying food from different types of cultures and different parts of the world, Melbourne has access to so much of it. And you wouldn't think so, because you think, hey, you know, it's Australia, it's in the middle of nowhere, like how much food culture could they have? I was scared. I honestly heard stories about Melbourne like basically being like all meat, no veg, like really, really bland food. But that was the Australia of yesteryear. Now, especially Melbourne is more of like a kind of a hipster feel down here. A little bit more of like a, I say like West Coast US and Canada, or maybe like a Toronto type of feel. There's lots of restaurants here. A lot of them are independently owned. And as I said, you know, we can get Indian food here, all kinds of Asian food, because of course Australia is quite close to Asia. There's lots of different African types of restaurants here. There's just French, European, Italian, like there's just a mixture of so many different types of food. Like honestly, I don't think there's a type of food that I've searched for that I haven't been able to find here so far, which is great. There's always options. And I mean, obviously right now going out isn't as easy, but back in the day, like you could literally try a new restaurant in Melbourne every single weekend, and you could go through a whole year of doing that and you still wouldn't touch all the food that's here. Like that's how many options there are. So it's really awesome if you do like to eat food, especially like different types of food. There's a lot of options here. And also, Melbourne is in the heart of wine country. So they actually have a lot of vineyards in and around Victoria. And some of them, they have the Yarra Valley, which is really not far from here. Like I think it's about a 45-minute to an hour drive from Melbourne. And basically it's just a place where lots of wineries are set up, and a lot of them have tours that you can go through and you can like actually see what the winery and the vineyard looks like. And these, of course, they make their own wines, and a lot of them also have like on-site restaurants and dairy farms and cheeses and stuff. Like it's a whole experience that you can do down here, and the wine is super cheap. If you are someone with a sophisticated palate, or at least one that really likes a lot of variety, then Melbourne is awesome. And number 5, finally, even though we are not able to do a lot of travel right now, Melbourne is really close to Asia. And if you are a traveler, that is awesome, because living in Canada, I'd always wanted to go to places like Japan, Vietnam, Korea, but they're like across the world from Canada, right? It's always so expensive. Like I didn't really do as much travel. I actually never did any Asian travel when I was in Canada, but when you live in Australia, it's significantly closer. Like now, instead of having to fly like 18, 20 some hours, it's only like 10, which is awesome. Now, of course, because I said Australia is pretty far away from most things, it still is a significant flight, but it's not as bad as it is, as I said, from Canada. So all those places I mentioned, a lot closer. A lot of people here go to Bali and Korea and Japan and Vietnam and all those places for vacation here in Australia because it's actually very close and very affordable. Like so many Australians go to Bali, like that's their default vacation location because you can do a week in Bali and it's only a 8-hour flight from here and it's really affordable. Like there's a lot of really good deals if you're able to find them. So I love that personally. As a traveler, as someone who absolutely loves to travel, it just opens up a whole new world of travel possibilities that would have been a lot more difficult coming from Canada. I haven't taken advantage of as many of them as I'd like, unfortunately. I plan on doing that the second we're able to fly again, which I'm really hoping will be sometime early next year. I am definitely going to get my travel on, and I think the first place I'm going to be hitting is Bali. So look out for that. But yes, that is one of the coolest things about living down here is that it just opens up a whole new world of places to go without sacrificing all that precious time and money. So that's it for me, guys, as far as the 5 things that I love the most about living here in Melbourne. Obviously, mileage is going to vary for other people, but those are the things that have really made living here enjoyable for me for the last 3 years. Obviously, there's a lot more than that, but I just thought I'd sum it up into 5 main points. What do you guys think about it? Have you ever been to Melbourne? Would you agree with some of them? And hey, if any Australians are watching this, do you agree with this? Or do you think that there's just so much more that I'm missing out on? Anything you guys want to say, please leave it in the comments below. I love it when you guys engage and we can talk and have this conversations. I want to get in them comments with y'all. So if you like what you see here, guys, please go ahead and click that like button. Likes are what lets me know what kind of content you guys are going to like to watch. It helps me to figure out what to put on this channel, but also lets me know if this content is good, is it too long, too short, whatever the case may be. I love the feedback. And again, if you're ready to join the family, go ahead and click that subscribe button. We'd love to have you here. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and until next time, I'll see ya.